I'm Van Sebastian, here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins, bringing you this week's Written on the Edge of Season 11, Episode 9 interview. We'll be joined by Geoffrey Newman to discuss his memoir, Better to Cry Now. So let's get to know our guest. Geoffrey Newman, PhD, is Dean Emeritus of the College of the Arts at Montclair State University in New Jersey. He was the first holder of the Owen Duston Distinguished Professorship from Wabash College in 1987 and received the prestigious Amoco Award for Theatrical Excellence from the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival in 1979. He helped establish the Department of Theater at Wabash College in 1970 and served on the faculty of the Drama Department from 75 to 86, during which time he was appointed Chairman of Drama. He then served as the founding dean of the College of Arts at Montclair State University from 88 to 2011. He now resides in Palm Springs, California, with Ed, his husband, and soulmate of 47 years. Geoffrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Let me just correct a couple of things. One is now Ed and I have been together 51 years.
Oh,
And two, the 1975 to 87 was on the faculty of Howard University and chair of that Department of Drama.
Gotcha. Nice. Still an amazing bio and life story.
what the hell have you done with yourself, girl?
I know. What can I tell you? I've only tried.
I know, right? Right. The best we can do.
Right? Well, so obviously your life has revolved around drama and theater, which is the core of storytelling, but you've decided to write a memoir, which is an entirely different craft. Where did that passion come from? Like, where did that seed start?
Um, that's very interesting, and it started well back when I was in high school. And when I was in high school, as I go into a lot more depth in my book, I was floundering. I had all kinds of obstacles ahead of me. Teachers who told me I was good for nothing. I wouldn't amount to anything. I should learn a good trade. I would never get into a college. If I did, I'd never finish. All of those negative things. But then I found the High School Musical. And probably as every gay man in the history of the world, when they found, or when I found, and when they find the High School Musical, it is as though there's another world
Yeah.
that's opening up. And at that point, I had studied music, and I studied violin and trombone and voice, and that was all fine. And I had marched in the band and done a presidential inaugural parade, and that was all fine. But the High School Musical allowed me to create a world of my own, and that was the beginning of me believing that was possible on every other level. And that was the launching of my creative spirit or impulse or drive that led me to exploring everything. When I was I obviously got into a college. I ended up graduating from Howard University. And at Howard, I studied music, I studied voice, I studied art, I studied theater. And the program at the time I was at Howard was trying to prepare a person as a Renaissance a man, so that you were able to really go and do anything
Right.
once you graduated. And you had the confidence to believe you could accomplish anything. And so it really started with the High School Musical, developed in college, and then I started teaching. And as I had just wonderful teaching opportunities, my first job, as you said, was at Wabash College. But I was trained at my master's at Wayne State University, where Lily Tomlin went and Jeffrey Tambor, who was actually a student with me at the time. And I actually thought, boy, my aspiration was to be on that big screen and be a star, as I've seen so many people doing, particularly from Wayne State, because the training program was just exemplary. However, um, my advisor called me in one day and said, "Look, I've gotten a phone call from a very small elite all men's college, Wabash College, and they're looking to build. No, Edmund Ball just gave them $40 million to build a theater performing arts facility. They have no faculty, they have no majors, they have nothing in place to run and communicate all of this to the students. Would you be interested in coming and helping us build and start this program?" Well,
That was 40 million in 1970, just to put it in perspective.
can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit of
Eh,
pocket change.
uh-huh. Wonderful. But it was,
I want to sit on that couch.
oh, this was just an incredibly wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Of course, I had trepidation like anyone else. A little small school. Where is it? Crawfordsville, Indiana. Is it
Mhm.
the seat of the Ku Klux Klan? Yeah, but yeah, just come. We'll bring you. We'll fly you here. We'll take care of all of your personal needs, and just look at the facility and talk to us. That's all we ask. So I thought, well, I don't have anything to lose by doing that. So I did. Boy, this facility was to die for. 500 seats, great raked house, a stage with an elevator, orchestra that broke into sections, everything you could imagine. Even though it was an all men's school, they had dressing room facilities for 10 to 15 men and 20 women. They had a black box. They had everything you could possibly imagine. Well, as most people, when you dazzle a diamond in front of them, it sparkles enough to get their attention.
Mm.
And if it's real, it creates a kind of desire to want to be a part, if not own, if not share, if not view on a regular basis. And that's what happened. So I went there with with the full idea in my mind that what I would do is just build this program and then develop my career as a performing artist. To that extent, while I was there, I developed a musical group that I performed with on the weekends at the local Holiday Inn bar. I created a summer stock theater for them where I brought in professional artists and then teachers from around the region to learn how to build theater during the summer so they could go back into their schools and then form a bond, a network where they could work together. And I learned how to teach. Well, as you well know, boy, once you get that bug of feeling that you can help change the minds and souls of young people, it is an elixir that just brought me in to where I began to see myself not on the screen, but in the hearts and minds of students. And then I launched that career. It wasn't long before I was up for tenure because I was in a tenure track. And the dean calls me in, dean of the college at Wabash, and says, "So what are you going to do next?" And I said, "What do you mean? What am I going to do next?" He said, "Well, we never expected you would stay here. We thought you would come here and help us build this program, but you have Geoffrey, so many opportunities and things ahead of you, projects and programs ahead of you that we can't stand in that way. We have to encourage you to explore your potential. I said, does that mean you're firing me? He said, no, that means we're pushing you out of the nest. And that's exactly what they did. At the time, Howard University was in a time period where they were still recovering from the 60s, which is another whole story of
Mhm.
being a
Mhm.
student, particularly an art student in the 60s, and Howard being taken over through the Kent State Massacre, the revolt of students, SNCC, the all of those social revolts of change happened, and and I managed to get through all of that. But when Howard called me and asked me to come and join their faculty, my father, who was really the bearer of that news, said to me, "You know, Geoffrey, when your alma mater calls and needs you, you can't say no." So I didn't look to go anywhere else. I decided to go to Howard. Great thing, wonderful. I did because I went from teaching and building a program and connecting with students at a private all men's, basically white school to the largest HBCU
HBC, yep.
Hmm.
school where the 99% of my students were Black, and and had to then really adjust to listening and hearing how I could take my skills and help these students build foundations that could help them flourish in a world that wasn't always welcoming, that
Hmm.
wasn't always giving an opportunity, but I wanted to try to teach them how to make opportunities. So in doing that, I actually stayed there for 13 years. In those 13 years, I became the chair of the department, and I did something that hadn't been done at Howard since 1948, and that was I put together a troupe of students, faculty, and professionals out of New York. We all flew a troop of 50. I then organized all of that, flew it over to Switzerland, where we did the European premiere of the musical Raisin.
Oh, wow.
And we
Nice.
toured that with students and professionals for 4 months. Uh, After I did that and came back, um, uh, I then was really looking for, no, I got a call. Wabash again said, look, we've started this program with uh, uh, to do a distinguished professorship. Would you come out and inaugurate the program and actually be our first recipient? I did that. That was wonderful. Just a wonderful experience to go back and see how things had changed and how the program had grown. And I must tell you that one of the proudest things I experienced with, not with them, but because of my efforts, was they were the first independent school to do a gay play in a all male environment. That was um, that was just stunning for me. But nonetheless, at the end of that, I thought, I could really sort of do something. My talents could really be used on a larger scale. So I thought I should explore the next step in my academic growth, and that would be a deanship. So I looked all around at deanships. To my surprise, I got maybe 5 offers to come and talk to them about deanships from all over the country. But one school wanted me to come like yesterday, and that was Montclair State. At the time, it was called Montclair State College. They said, just like Wabash, just come and talk to us. We we have 3 disparate departments, a visual arts department, a music department, a theater and dance department, and a growing communications department, but they didn't really know what that was. So that was wrapped into speech and theater. Uh, and come and talk to us about it, and let's see whether or not this is a match. Well, the campus of this school, and of course, I'm a theater person, so I'm very influenced by visuals. The campus on this school sat in Upper Montclair, New Jersey, which overlooked Manhattan. And from the campus and the windows out of all of the facilities that housed the performing arts, you could see the skyline of Manhattan glooming during the day and during the night. Well, and to top it all off, the state had awarded them the Northern Center of Excellence for the Arts for the state, and had given them $5.7 million to bridge the gap between the academic world and the professional world. Well, this was a natural for me. I said, boy, what I could do here is just un it's just impossible to contain my imagination.
Right.
So I accepted. I
You
went
went from 16 crayons to play with to the full 64 set.
exactly, exactly. And as many people said, I stepped over the line by going from a faculty member teacher to an administrator. But you see, I decided that I wanted to be one of those administrators who never left awareness and connection with the students. So I actually would I directed plays for them while I was a dean. I taught classes while I was a
So you
dean.
got in the trenches.
I got right in the trenches. And what did that do? That built trust and respect from the faculty. Because one of the other things I had to do, although I'm never shy of taking a risk, one of the other things I had to do was give up tenure. Because at Howard, I had earned tenure. So I had a job there for life. But Montclair, because it was a state institution, never brought anyone in with tenure. They had to earn it. But for me, earning something was my whole life. I
Right.
never felt as though I needed to fear what I had to earn. I just had to trust my abilities, my own intuition, my visceral interpretation and understanding of what needed to be done. So I went about doing that. I brought many of the things that that I had learned from all those previous positions to this position. I ended up building helping to transform Montclair State College into Montclair State University. I helped the university found and create the College of the Arts. I took the enrollment from 2,000 majors to just over 3,000 majors. I developed programs for 18 to 20,000 students, which were the core of the university. I developed international programs. We were the first school to ever have an articulation agreement with the Moscow Conservatory of Music. I created a school of music, found a donor who donated $5 million to provide the naming rights to build a $39 million performing facility.
Wow.
But of course, I had that experience of having gone there. So this was like just
Old
on the
trodden ground,
list.
right?
It was
Exactly.
all right. And at the end of 24 years, I went to the dean and I said, the president rather, and I said, I think I'm going to retire. At that time, the president was Susan Cole. She said to me, but Geoffrey, you built this enormous complex in school. At that point, I had 8 facilities. I had a MFA program, a master's program, a BFA program, a BA program. I mean, I had all that you could imagine, including a connection with New York. Um, and she said, well, why would you ever want to leave now? I said, well, that's the time to leave. I have built this for someone now to come in and take it into another direction, bring new blood to it, try to find other ways. And I want to spend some time enjoying what life I have left. So one of
Plus,
my
there was the other thing called a husband.
yes, you're right. One of the other things, he's here applauding. One of the other things, uh, one of the other things I happened was that Ed and I actually decided they in the state they had just created what was it, Ed? Not marriage. It was civil unions.
Civil unions, yes. Mhm.
And so we said, well, if we marry, become a civil union, that means I could bring Ed on my health care plan
Yeah.
Yep.
and save quite a bit of resources,
Mhm.
et cetera, which is what we did.
Nice.
To congratulate us, our biggest donor took Ed and me to their country club for dinner as congratulatory. When we're sitting there having dinner, they said, well, what's your plan for the future? We said, well, we bought a condo, beautiful condo on the water in Florida, but we really don't like Florida. It just seems like the people who go to Florida go there to die and eat early and
We
get
want to live, live, live.
sorry.
No, 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 no.
No, my
But
husband used to live in Florida. He jokingly said it was God's waiting room. Like
it
that's the
really,
perception down there.
that is that perception. In pride, that perception. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't consider that a negative.
No.
Consider that a positive. Anyway, she said, well, the place for you guys is no doubt Palm Springs. We said, we've never been to Palm Springs. She and her husband said, we have a home in Palm Springs. Our gift to you is a week in that home. Just go out, spend the week there, and see if it's the place.
Yep.
Well, we came out, and I think the third day we were here,
What year was it?
This was in 2011.
Okay.
The third day we were here, we said we should start to talk to a realtor. And we looked around, and of course, at that time, 2011, the economy in Palm Springs was in the tubes. You could
Yeah.
buy property for next to nothing.
Yep.
So we immediately bought something, put down on something, went back to Jersey, sold our condo. I then announced, as I told you, that I was to retire. Ed actually, fortunately, was given an opportunity to retire at the same time. We both left and came to Palm Springs, and that's where we've been since 2012.
That's beautiful.
I wouldn't suggest anything other than that. But my whole career has, as my book indicated or indicates, is a flow of energy that has actually helped develop me as a gay Black man. And I really feel as though that's been a process. I don't really feel as though I was one of those people who came out when they were young. Oh, well, in my mind, being in your 20s now, 30s and 40s is young. But what I mean is I was not one. I had a girlfriend in high school.
Right.
All of that. I went through all of those expected channels,
Permutations. Yeah. Yeah.
all of those things that everyone said
Yeah.
a man needed to do, and nothing seemed to satisfy me. So I just sort of became asexual, and then when I left Wabash, I made a commitment to myself that I was no longer going to hide in any closet. I was no longer going to run away from who I am. If I was going to go to an HBCU school and teach Black kids how to function in a white, hostile environment and flourish in that environment, then I had to be honest and truthful to who I really am. So I decided to come out and openly come out. So it was no shocker to anyone on the faculty or students that
They're
whether or
all,
not I
girl,
was
you're in
gay,
drama. We know.
I was in drama or drama.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And
Okay. For those listening, I just want to say this is the answer to the first question Vance asked. We're 15 minutes in, and it was question one. The whole time you're talking, and I'm believe me, I'm enjoying the tale.
I'm
But yeah,
sorry.
I just no, no, I just went. This was Vance's first question. That
I
just
know it
crossed.
is. I'm sorry. You can actually, the truth of the matter is, you can edit any part of this out that you.
Oh, it's lovely.
No, well, so here's where I'm going to take that though.
Okay.
Your life story is beautiful,
Thank you.
and it sounds like you have been blessed in like every direction.
Totally.
When people pick up your memoir, are they going to also see conflict and challenges?
The first, the first sentence after the intro of my book is Blacks and Jews don't have the capacity to learn and speak the French language. So if you're in my class and you fall into one of those categories, you need to drop the class now because you're going to fail.
Wow.
That is what I faced in my first day of the 10th grade.
So he just went, girl, hold my beer.
That
So conflict started for me in the fourth grade when when Washington D.C. was integrated by the Supreme Court. Brown versus education, and the education was mandated over the nation to be integrated instantly. I was taken, I was in the fourth grade. This happened during my Christmas break. I was informed I would not be returning to the school I had gone to before the break. I would have to walk to the white school that I was never allowed to go into, and that's where I would spend the rest of my elementary school. As I walked to that day to that school, um, there was on either side of me a line of white kids who stared, looked, taunted, and made me feel as uncomfortable as I could possibly be. But I have had great parents, and my parents always taught me to walk tall and don't give in to bullies or pressure to be other than who you are. So I got there, I went there. I remember in the first teacher parent conference where I sat and listened to my white teacher tell my parents how I was not college material, how she felt really sorry for this little black child who always thought he knew the answer but was always wrong, and how I needed to really be schooled in a very good trade. So adversity started for me 8 years old in the fourth grade, and it continued from there until I got to Howard University as a faculty member. And then, and only then, was I able to really become the person I am today.
So I have a question. Since we've made a pit stop here at HBCU Howard, um, what was it like being in the position you were in to not only strive for Black excellence in your department, but what was it like for the queer factor amongst the students? Because I grew up in and around the Black community. My parents used to sing in a very large gospel choir that was pretty well respected here in California, and so I've been in the community a lot, and I've seen the highest of highs and the absolute gut-wrenching lowest of lows. But what I'm wondering is, how was it, you being a Black queer man in that environment, and how receptive were those students to that influence? Because no matter what we do as gay men, we have that queer slant to everything we do. Even if the work at hand is not queer, we still
Yeah,
have that ability because of our life experiences to actually imbue and color what's being done with that queer eye. So
yeah.
what was that like being at Howard? Because that really fascinates me.
It was very interesting. Um, the gay element was really never a problem at Howard,
Hmm.
because so many of the faculty were gay themselves or were connected to artists who were gay. Um, and my mentor when I was a student there was Owen Dotson. And
Hmm.
Owen Dotson was gay. And Owen Dotson, so I was a transfer student. And when I came in, Owen Dotson somehow took a liking to me and took me under his wing and groomed me. He told me where I should go during the weekends to see what exhibition, what show, what play. And then when I'd come in on Monday, we would have a session where he would eat his lunch and I would recite back to him what I learned that weekend. So I had such a strong background and such a defining role model that the gay piece I never really thought of as a problem. However, the major problem was that the curriculum at Howard hadn't changed much from when I was there. And the students really demanded that we focus as faculty on Black theater, not on traditional, what they called white theater. So my job, which was, oh, wow, difficult, was to impress upon these students that technique and styles of all periods were important for them to learn, and how they could bring their own ethnicity, their own cultural idiosyncratic elements to those characters and make an Elizabethan character as true as possible, because in every character you can find universal elements that apply to you. And so my hardest job was to build trust that they would accept that as really a valid way to approach their craft. Took me a while, but ultimately I succeeded. And ultimately, many of my students went on to great success. Probably the biggest of the success of the student of one of my students of that period is or was Lynn Whitfield, who won the Emmy for the Josephine Baker story. She was really one of my acting students, and I taught her advanced acting and styles and all of that. And then we became friends, and I flew out to California when she had a starring role in Jaws 3. And then when she went on and did other movies and so forth and so on. But so it wasn't really the gay part that was a problem. It was really understanding that technique from all sources are elements that, once mastered, can be applied to any situation and any cultural group. I have another, while we're on that subject, can I skip to a point? Because I'm right at a very important point that you asked me, and that was what fictional or historical character.
Well, save that for when
Okay,
we get to.
I don't mean that one.
We're gonna get to those. That's a whole segment.
Okay. Go ahead.
In the interest of time and getting to those, I have one
Yeah.
last question, and then we'll get to that list.
Okay.
Is there anything else about your memoir that you want folks to know that we didn't think to ask?
Only about only my you're going to hear me talk about this more when you ask a question later.
Okay.
Certainly.
But I really believe my memoir has an opportunity to show and illustrate to anyone who reads it about how you can overcome any obstacle with creativity, tenacity, and love. And every single time I have confronted a hateful negative attitude or action, I try to either displace or replace that with love. Because I've always found that love conquers all. And in the end, evil and hate will destroy itself and love will remain and prevail. And that's what I hope my book ultimately communicates to everyone who reads it.
Beautiful.
I love that.
All right, take it away, Baz.
All right. Well, before we get to our questions here, I just
Okay.
want to take a quick moment to say, if you like what you're seeing here and what we're talking about, definitely like, subscribe, do all the things that YouTube asks us to do. And then if you want to support us and keep this ongoing conversation with queer content creators for our community, please consider donating by either going to buymeacoffee.com/wrotepodcast or patreon.com/wrotepodcast, where we have also other offerings of queer reactions to queer media and all kinds of things that we have posted up there. So that's another way for you to help us out. And the most inexpensive way, because we know that times are tough, is to join our memberships here on YouTube. So if you click the membership button and say join, and then it's only 99 cents a month, less than $1, and it goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And so with all of that being said, let's get into the weeds, shall we?
Okay.
Okay. So I promise to be gentle.
Okay.
What book, film, or piece of art has had the biggest influence on your writing style?
The person who's had the greatest influence on my writing style is Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh, yeah.
This book, Between the World and Me, it really framed for me how I could tell my story without including the negative experiences, yet shape them in a way that one could understand it as positive, motivating factors that help me grow. So I love his work. I love his books, and he continues to be an inspiration for me.
He's a wonderful conversationalist, too.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's the style
Yeah.
of my
Yeah.
book, is that kind of
There we go.
conversational,
There we go.
laid back kind of idea, as though it's a fireside chat,
There
or
you go.
a fireside gay chat with a
Right.
black overtone.
Best kind.
Right, exactly. All right. Well, what fictional/historical character would you invite to a march with you at a pride parade? Baz.
You're going to love this one. I would invite Carol Channing.
Ah,
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
the
she's such a
reason,
nice lady. She's so
uh,
nice.
listen, I produced her one-woman show
oh,
at Montclair after she left the umpteenth performance she on Broadway with Hello Dolly. She had then put together a one-woman show, and I produced it at Montclair in our theater. And during that time, her husband had a heart attack.
mm,
Uh, as we were doing a light check, she's in her dressing room, he's on stage, and he collapses. Um, I go to her dressing room to bring her. She comes, and they have an intimate moment where he reaches up to her and says, "You've got to go on, Carol, and you must do the show." She uh, uh, nodded to him, never showed the fear, the pain, the suffering she was going through. She went back to her dressing room. She got dressed, and in less than 3 hours, she was on stage as Dolly. Now, that may seem like it's just the professionalism and and the style and technique she had. But it's more than that. She was, in my mind, having spent private time with her and having an opportunity to really connect with her. She really cared about people. She cared about what people felt, the what they were going through. Every single performance, even that night, she came out after the performance into the audience and she greeted her fans. Listen, if I could think of anyone who I would love to be with and strut down the street with pride on my face and love in my heart, it would be Miss Carol Channing.
I'm right there with you. I love that answer. I love that answer. Okay, if you slash, well, this is actually your memoir. So let's just change this next question a little bit.
Okay.
If you could choose anybody that you have had as a student and you both had to survive gay bar karaoke night, what song would you or they belt out?
There's no doubt. The song I would belt out comes from a musical that I directed at Montclair that was my most successful musical or performance of anything I did in my 24 years. The song I would sing is I Am What I Am from La Cage aux Folles.
I love that. I love that. Okay, what's a place, real or imagined, that feels like home to you and why?
Palm Springs, Palm Springs, Palm
Yes.
Springs. Listen, Palm Springs, Ed and I have talked many, many, many times. Uh, Palm Springs is probably the only community I've ever been in my life where I've seen gay couples who've been together 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
30 years,
Mm-hmm.
40 years, 50 years.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, for us to be happy, we really need to know that there is a support group of friends who are there for us, whether it's crisis or the need to talk about mobilizing forces to march against some atrocity or something else that this administration decides to do. Palm Springs is really a melting pot of great proportion because it has vast majority of us are seniors
Mhm.
and gay. The vast majority of our city council are gay. The vast majority of the network that you go and see a barber shop are gay. The network where you would see stores and facilities dedicated to serving the needs of the gay community, Palm Springs.
Can I put in a plug?
And then the weather.
Oh, the
Yeah,
weather's
right.
amazing. Can I put in a plug?
Yes.
The radio station, KGay Palm Springs.
Oh, yes.
Stream. This is for all listeners. It streams online. So if you want to hear the community that Geoffrey is talking about, listen to them for like 2 hours. You will hear about events, get-togethers, groups, clubs.
It's
The
incredible.
the community that has been built in Palm Springs is out of this world. And like I said, if you want to just a taste of it from wherever you live, find their streaming. It's KGay Palm Springs. It's amazing. And
And I would just say you're so right. And I would say just one other thing that adds to that,
yeah.
and that is that last year I think the census showed that in the Coachella Valley, where Palm Springs is only 43,000 people of that total group, probably not more than 100,000. a little over 100,000. We have 1.5 million visitors each year.
Yep.
And we have visitors from, we used to have the White Party that brought in thousands of gay party folk. We have the splash parties where the beach parties and thousands come in for that. We have the
Because
motorcycle
we know the
party.
girls love their parties.
Oh, what can I tell you? The Palm Springs Gay Pride Parade is led by the high school marching band. And as a result, you'll see as many straight people as you will see gay people lining the streets,
Yes.
applauding the gay parade moving through downtown Palm Springs.
Yep.
It is the place for gay people to be openly who they are, whatever that happens to be in terms of how they express that. And there's no, there's even drag Sunday brunches.
Sunday brunch, that's right.
Where you can go and see a drag performance and have a Sunday brunch as well. I mean, it's just a wonderful place.
Love it. Love it.
Highly recommended.
Okay, and just real quickly,
yes,
we're running time.
Yeah,
but
I know.
What was your opinion just of mid-century modern with the gay boys? What did you think of the show?
Oh, isn't that interesting? On some level,
go get your popcorn,
right.
girls.
On some level, I really, really liked it. I loved the concept. I loved Nathan Lane. He's one of my favorite of all actors. His sense of timing. But my only thing was I wished it had taken more effort to be rather than studio filming outside,
more like Grace and Frankie.
Locations.
Yeah, more like Grace and Frankie, which was
right,
more
exactly.
Yeah,
where you could really sort of see the habitat of those people, learn about those characters and their lives outside of the home.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, when you go outside, you often put on a role for the main public to see. And I wanted to see how those characters functioned.
Well, yeah, because Palm Springs is a character. It deserved the love. It deserved the love,
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. Well, going on. What's the strangest or most unexpected place you found inspiration?
Okay. This is a story that I use to close my book. And I'll be really, really brief with it because I know we're running out of time. Ed and I are not really bar flies, and even though we met 50 plus years ago at the Washington Eagle, and from that night to today have always been together. Regardless of what the distance has been between us geographically. We just haven't really been bar people. But our neighbor, gay neighbor, is single and is very much into the bar. So he week after week tried to get us to go to the bar with him. We finally said, okay, we'll go. We went to one of the local popular gay bars. The street bar is what it's called. Isn't it street bar?
Street bar named Desire.
It calls it the street bar named Desire. I have to remember that. So we went that night to this bar. He is a smoker. So we were relegated to sitting out on the patio. So we're sitting there, neither of us smoke. So we're sitting there wondering how much longer we're going to have to inhale the secondhand smoke, and listening and engaged in conversation. And all of a sudden, I notice a woman across the way staring at me. I didn't. I turned to Ed and I said, Ed, am I going crazy? Doesn't that woman look like she's staring at me? Um, and he in his not obvious way took a look and said, yes, I think she is too. As he said that, this person got up, came over, stood right to my face, and she said, Dr. Newman? I said, yes. She said, I know you don't remember me, but 30 years ago, I was your student at Howard University, and you changed my life. I credit my career, which is flourishing in the film industry, because of you and what you taught me. And I will never, ever, ever be able to thank you enough for the gift you gave me. I said, I was stunned because, of course, I couldn't remember who she was or what. And just like that, I thanked her. We greeted, we hugged. I got a little bit more background of what she was doing, and that was the end of the encounter. As we left in the car, I kept saying to Ed, because Ed had been with me since all of Howard.
Uh-huh.
Who do you think this is, Ed? I mean, can you remember when I did something so meaningful that this woman would remember me 30 years later and then feel as though she was obliged to thank me? No, he couldn't think of it. And then I said to myself, that's not important. The important thing is
Right.
that I made a
Right.
difference. I
Right.
made an impact. I may not have made it to the big screen. I may not have made it to the stardom I thought where my mark should be placed. But clearly, I made a mark.
Yeah.
And I helped the lives of many students like this woman. So it reinforced to me the power of what a teacher can be and should be in helping shape the future for students. Wait, before we go though, I want to add one other thing, and that is, I want to talk. I want to just say one other thing about um, uh, um, uh, when I was a student at Howard. I transferred in 1966, volatile year. But that was when I got to Howard, I was placed in a show that was being previewed by a new up and coming writer. And that happened. The show was Blues for Mr. Charlie. The show was Blues for Mr. Charlie. The writer was James Baldwin. I got to meet James Baldwin. I got to see him work of shaping a play. And I got to see how this gay writer connected with everyone. It wasn't that you just connected with him because you were gay and he was gay, or you connected with him because he was black and you were black. It was because he had his pulse on the human condition, and not unlike other banned, which I hope to be one day, banned book writers like Maya Angelou, one of my
Mm-hmm.
all-time favorite and heroes. Um, uh, he was an icon who dared to speak truth to power, and that's what I hope everyone learns and finds the courage to do.
Love it. I'm going to interject for just a second.
Okay.
Don't feel rushed. We're going to finish the interview. Don't feel like we're going to cut you off. If I need to cut something from earlier to keep it under an hour, we can. But we are
Okay.
going to finish this interview. We'll get through the questions and we will wrap up with what you're doing next and stuff like that. So don't feel rushed.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good.
We're here for you.
Although the truth is, I always feel rushed, particularly at my age, because I feel like, oh well, I'm really on the last quarter of my life, so I feel like I have to say and get everything out right now for sake that I may be hit by a car tomorrow and it's all gone.
Well, don't let us be a cause of the
Oh
anxiety.
no, I won't. I
There,
won't.
there
I
you
won't.
go. There you
I
go.
won't.
All right, we'll jump back in with Baz's next question.
Okay.
Okay, so next question is, sorry, I gotta pause for a second here. My cat stepped on my mouse.
I saw
Yeah,
her
the
tail
tail.
going like
Yeah,
this.
she's being very, very Norma Desmond right now. Okay.
Another very good show.
Yeah. Which themes or motifs do you find yourself returning to again and again in your works?
The themes obviously of love conquers hate is a theme that I use not only through my book, but in all the writings I've been doing since then. And I've been doing, not to preempt your next question, but I've been doing a lot of writing of essays because, I went to I did a book reading and lecture at Montclair State University
Oh,
where they honored my book and gave me an award and all.
that's lovely.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. But during that, uh, um, uh, I was shocked at how the students who had read my book had connected with it as as providing the strength and foundation for them to tell their stories and live their stories and have the courage to take risk and to not be afraid to speak truth to power. Well, all of that inspired me to really sort of write more on those subjects. So that's actually my next book, and I'm working on putting a series of essays together. Before you ask the question, the putting in essays together that speak on the subject of fear, love, conquering fear, abolish, changing, transforming hate into love, using love in our lives in every way, whether it is through people, places, or things. And those are all, I think, themes that are so vitally needed today because the crises that we face today on every level, including education, are deep seated fear of reprisals, fear of negative responses, fear of making a mistake, fear of failing, fear, and then fear turns into hate, and then hate turns into anger.
And then you meet a little green guy who keeps telling you that you either do or do not. There is no try.
Right, right. I mean, it's just so the themes that I've sort of gravitated toward,
Hmm.
that I pulled out of the book, are really those themes. They are really about how we can and should survive in a world that seems to be turning upside down, and everything around us seems to be moving and shaking. But as you know, living in California, where the earth underneath you can change at a moment's
But
notice.
girl, I would rather rock and roll for 30 seconds than be in a state where there's a tornado that can whip your ass into another county.
Listen, I was in a state in Florida where we had a beautiful, beautiful condo on the water, and it wasn't really a hurricane. I think it was downgraded to just
Tropical storm.
a tropical storm
Yeah.
that came in, and you could stand in the middle of our living room, and you could see the Florida glass windows just bellow.
Wow. Yeah.
At that point, I said to Ed, "Oh no, no, honey, this ain't gonna take me out.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's why I
We're gonna
say
have to find
I'll
something.
take the 30 seconds of rocking and rolling.
I will too, and have many times now."
Okay, well, finally, our final question to this.
Yes,
What is a piece of LGBTQ plus culture, music, film, art, or history that never fails to inspire you?
musical theater. I go back to where I began. Musical theater. Yeah, I have just one quick story about that. Remember the tour I told you about with
Mm-hmm.
the Raisin in
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland?
Mm-hmm.
I brought with me all the performers, and the rhythm section, because the host thought that we could get a stronger rhythm section from Black musicians than from white musicians. The string section came from Vienna, and the dressers came from Poland. The Probably all of the dressers never spoke English, or at least what English they spoke were a few words here and there. Yet, while that show played, every single performance, those dressers stood in the wings and watched that play, and and emoted as the play evolved. And at the end of the play, they applauded more than the audience. I couldn't understand this. I had to find out what was behind all this. So I went to an interpreter. I got one of them, and I asked the question, why is it that you are
Connect so
so
much. Yeah. Yeah.
fascinated and seem to be connected with this play? And they said, that's because we see this story as our story. It's about you presented as a group of Black people coming into an environment where they're not wanted, but and have finding a way to survive and flourish in that environment. We see that as the history of Poland and the Polish people struggling over oppression and surviving, and yet having then another oppressor come in and surviving, and yet having another oppressor come in and surviving. We see that struggle as our struggle, and we connect to it in that way. Wow. For me, that said everything I needed to say. So years later, when I created a group, when I decided that one of the best ways to teach diversity, equity, and inclusion to our faculty, students, and staff, and the value of that, I decided to use my international experience as a way to show the value of learning multiple cultures. So I put together a traveling group of students I put together a group of Broadway songs. I created a scenario of this was a traveling group, and not unlike the musical Fantastics, there was a big box and case travel box where they could get costumes and out, and the musical came alive right there in the supposed terminal. And we sang the songs and dot, dot, dot. And the last song I put was the barricade song from Les Mis.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And that was the last song. I did a press conference before the opening. I took the group to Ukraine because I wanted them to see this new democracy and what that meant. And and at that point, I discovered what a coincidence. That was the end of the first year that they had their break from Russia, and we were performing in the Tchaikovsky Hall, which was anchoring Freedom Square, that now had become Freedom Square, that used to be Lenin Square.
Right.
So I had a press conference. The press said to me, well, how can you justify in our day and time, with our struggles, bringing musical theater? That seems to be such a frivolous form that we just don't understand why you would choose to do that rather than something that's more meaningful. I said, well, that indicates your lack of understanding of musical theater. Musical theater came from what we called burlesque vaudeville. That's the origins of it. And that evolved from the need of people to tell stories via music and use music to help move people to understand very complex feelings in very simplistic terms. And I said, just watch what my students do, and then ask me that question. No, you won't need to ask me that question, because you will see why I did this. Well, one of the things I didn't tell them was that as that song builds, it builds, as you know, to where they climb up this, this barricade, and a French red flag of revolution is waved. Well, I substituted the French red flag with the new Ukrainian flag.
Nice.
And as and this was the finale, as that built up and my students got bolder and louder and more confident and got to the top of it, they unfurled the largest Ukrainian flag you could ever have imagined existed. And the audience, for 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds, were silent. And then all of a sudden, it just exploded with cheers and tears and yelling and affirmation of what they had seen and how this was so relevant, and how what we had done was bring them right back to Ukraine. and the power of what they had done. And at that point, the reviews the next day were
Off the chain. You're
overwhelmingly off the chart. And my point was well taken. So musical theater for me has always been the power, because it embraces all the mediums: dance, music, visual arts. Uh, um,
It's the
uh,
very best of theater.
it's the
Yeah.
best of
It's the
all.
very best of theater.
Best of all theater. So I really have never found it to fail, even when it's on a high school level.
Mm-hmm.
Never
Mm-hmm.
found it to fail. You know,
Mm-hmm.
whether the kids stumble through the lines or become professionals and make you believe what the characters they're saying, it still never fails to move the audience in profound ways.
Yep. Beautiful. And you made it through our list.
Yay!
Bravo. So you teased my next question. You actually even addressed it. What you working
Right.
on next? Your book of essays.
Well, I'm working on a book of essays. I've been really fortunate to form an alliance with the Gay and Lesbian Review, and
Nice.
they have published one of my essays last month, and I'm working on a new piece that will be published partly on my website, which is jeffreynewmanauthor.com. And then the other half will be on their website, and we'll try to send the viewers, the subscribers to both websites.
Nice.
But ultimately, I'm going to put all of these essays together in a new text, and then the most the upcoming and most exciting presentation is joining a panel at Saints and Sinners
Oh, bravo,
in
bravo.
New Orleans, where I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of building memoirs.
Love
And
it.
that will be at the end of this month.
Love it.
Nice.
Love it.
And for folks who are just listening through their ears and aren't looking, your name is spelled Geoffrey, NewmanAuthor.com. So they can go to your site and track what you're doing. There's the beautiful cover for those of you who are watching on
Love it.
YouTube. Look at
It
that
is.
look at that
And it
amazing
has
art.
won, it's actually won several awards now. But the proudest of all is the National Indie Book Awards, because it's so highly competitive with anyone who's written anything in any
Right.
format, published anyway. And this was selected as one of their winners for 2024. So I'm really, really proud of how the book has been received. And I encourage everyone to read it, because on my website, jeffreynewmanauthor.com, there's an opportunity for you to give me feedback, and I'm able to actually talk, give you answer your questions or concerns, or share with you what thoughts you may have.
Love it. All right, Geoffrey, to close the episode, I'm going to ask you for one final word of wisdom for our listeners, fans, and friends.
Hang in there. I know
Yes.
things get tough. I know we all have ups and downs, but my word of advice is hang in there. Don't be discouraged. Don't be dismayed. Don't be negative. Hang in there.
Love it.
You heard it here. All right, folks. folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Geoffrey Newman for being with us. Geoffrey, thank you.
Round of
Oh,
applause.
no, thanks is all mine. Thank you, Brad.
And thank Ed for us, too, would you?
Yeah. We got you, Ed. We got you.
All right, folks, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. If you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. The show is produced by Real Gravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye-bye now.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.